Hello, everyone. I'm Anungla Zoe Longkumer, and I'm the curator for this series of 3 online discussions of women in music in the Northeast. These discussions were held because there was a need to start conversations with artists from the Northeast and give them a safe space to talk about their lived experience and realities. The series include 2 webinars, which are a continuing conversation with female artists, practicing their music and looking at the intersection of gender, indigeneity, and music. And a third webinar is a conversation with artists about their music, their support systems, or lack thereof, and the struggles they have faced in this journey. And I'm personally very, very grateful to have got this opportunity to bring together many women artists in the Northeast to talk about their life in music. And I hope you all enjoy listening to their conversations. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Sadaf and I work with the Zubaan's projects team. Welcome to the third session of Cultures of Peace. Before we start, I'd like to briefly acquaint you with Zubaan and the program today. Zubaan is a feminist publishing house and NGO that has actively taken part in chronicling, publishing, and participating the women's movement in India and South Asia. The webinar for today is part of the 2020 programming for Zubaan's Cultures of Peace Festival of the North project, which is run in collaboration with the Heinrich-Böll Foundation India. To read more on the project, there's a link that will be given in the chat box. You can click on it to get details of the project. The Cultures of Peace project aims to create spaces for conversation on issues related to the northeastern states through the avenue of arts culture, and that is through photography, writing, literature, filmmaking, activism, and more. Commemorating its 10th anniversary this year, we kicked off this year's conversation starting with food cultures in the Northeast. The YouTube link for the webinars is being shared in the chat box, and you can check out our last session, which was on food cultures in the Northeast. In the next few weeks, we will be talking about food and gender in the Northeastern region. Today's session, Owning Her Space, Women in Music, is a part of a 2-episode conversation on lived experiences of women from the Northeast who are professional musicians. Both the sessions of the conversations have been curated by Anungla Zoe Longkumer. This session is chaired by Mercy Tetseo, who's a member as well as the spokesperson of the Tetseo Sisters of Nagaland. The Tetseo sisters are recipient of the Governor's Award for Folk Fusion Act, and Mercy herself is the winner of the Women's Super Achievers Award 2020 at the World Women's Leadership Congress for her contribution to preserving and popularizing Naga folk culture. Moving on, I'll introduce our speakers for the day. Tipriti Kharbangar is a blues vocalist and rhythm guitarist from Shillong, Meghalaya. She is the founding member of the famed blues band Soulmate, who have toured widely in India and abroad. She has recently been singing Khasi folk songs with Soulmate and the Clansmen. Mangka is a young motivational folk artist from the northeastern state of Manipur. She is currently working with children on reviving folk music and culture in Manipur. MoArenla is a singer, songwriter, and composer from Nagaland. Earlier, she has been a part of the folk fusion band Rajasthan Roots. She creates her own unique styles of blues from Nagaland, combining folk drums, bamboo flute, dotara, bass guitar, and other folk instruments. Anoushka Maskey from Sikkim identifies as a lyrics-first singer-songwriter, with her roots set in folk music and a fondness for storytelling. Her work is stylist of the two. Promises to be a very interesting session today. Before we start, I'd briefly like to go over the rules for participation for today. Thank you for being here. Your video and audio have been automatically turned off on entry, so please keep them turned off. Audience questions will be taken via the chat box, which will close once we get a certain number of questions that can be answered today. However, the raise hand function will still be made available to direct any queries at the hosts, including me and along with other hosts with Zubaan in their names. We will start dealing with audience questions at around 4:45 p.m. If there is any speaker in particular that you would want to direct your question to, please make sure to mention that in your comment as well. The discussion will be recorded and posted online via our social media channels. So if you choose to ask a question via the chat box or speak, your name might be displayed during the webinar. Entry has been moderated to guard against trolling. No hate speech, targeting, or discriminating against any community will be tolerated. Any participant using such speech will be removed from the webinar without warning. We can now begin the session. So over to Mercy.
Hey, a very good afternoon, almost evening from here in Kohima. And I'm so delighted to be here with all you wonderful people. First of all, thanks to Zubaan for opening up this opportunity to have this wonderful conversation with uh, my most respected and stellar and illustrious artist, of whom I'm absolutely in awe of. And of course, not to mention Anungla Zoe for putting together this wonderful panel of colleagues. Um, I am definitely looking forward to not a lot of male bashing, I hope, but yeah, we're definitely looking at a fun and interesting conversation about how we as women have come this far in our chosen set of music. I mean, we all identify as musicians, artists, and of course as women. Well, success, as you know, is something everybody's chasing, and it is definitely not gender specific. And music, I would say, is neither masculine nor feminine. But the tragedy of the reality of life is that you just do not see enough gender equality in the world around you, in whatever field it is that we look at. And specifically, music is one field where you see once again a lot of male dominance, and you see that the popular perspective is unfortunately too colored with male domination, and it's the male perspective that runs the industry, whether it's in India, in northeast of India, or even if you look at the global scenario where the music industry is bursting. But you know, you come across data from all of our studies and all kinds of academic researches, which shows that women are still and continue to be marginalized in terms of their professionalism, the kind of contribution they're allowed to make to business. And even if there is a fairly much bigger sense of inclusion, people are really working hard at it. Women are supporting women. There are organizations set up to support women to make them more included in various industries, including music. But we and you would still see that there is this image of, you know, more women being visible in the industry, but a lot of times it's more of a masking technique. It's more of a PR exercise. It's more of something that's put out there to fool popular views. You know, we're just catering once again to populist views of how people want to see women represented in music, and less about how women themselves want to be represented in the chosen field. And this afternoon, I would love to delve into the experiences of my very respected artists here who have all gone out on a limb to find their space in this male-dominated world. And well, I should, you know, obviously acknowledge that we, being by some stroke of luck, belong to a very unique region of the country, the Northeast, where I feel that we kind of experience less of that kind of discrimination than most people would if they belong to other parts of the world. And so that is definitely a one-up. You know, for example, this evening we have Tipriti, who is from Shillong, and Meghalaya. There's the distinction of having a matrilineal system. But well, my personal opinion that sometimes belonging to a matrilineal system doesn't really go in favor of a woman. So I would like to throw the first question at Tipriti this evening. Well, you have had this illustrious career of 15 years plus of being part of one of the biggest outfit in the country, redefining blues, you know, making your own self, creating an image of yourself. How much of your matrilineal background has had an effect on your personal journey as a musician, being this other half of Soulmate? How much of this is you, and how much of this is your environment and the cultural setup that you have come from?
Thank you, Mercy, for that very interesting question. Yes, I am from the Khasi tribe, which is a matrilineal tribe. Well, so as to say, I was raised, uh, first of all, I'm the only girl in my family. I had an elder brother who passed away, and I have two younger brothers, okay? And being in a family with mostly guys, I was not raised to be any different than my brothers. You know, the matrilineal side is that, yeah, uh, I will inherit the uh, the property or whatever my parents own, but so as to say, um, I was raised in a way to respect men, whether I inherit the property or not. I was raised to love my brothers, and I was raised in a way that I'm no different to my brothers, right? Being in a family where we we fight a lot, we scream at each other, and sometimes we even literally like we have fist fights. So there's never been that part where my parents come, no, you are a girl, you have to behave like a girl. If my brother is wrong, my elder brother is wrong, and we are in a conversation that yes, I'm right, that means they will be on my side. There's no such thing as like, okay, just because you're the only girl, you have to behave like a woman, and you have to uh, respect your brother. But male stereotypes, um, in a way, in the music field, I would say, male stereotypes is that they always think that if you are playing a guitar, that is not the instrument for you, right? And being in a family where my elder brother plays the guitar, my father plays the guitar, uh, I I just picked up the guitar, and I have learned to uh, basically do whatever they uh, uh, to. I have learned to just like play songs that are difficult. I've learned everything by watching them, right? So as I when I started my journey with soulmate, it was um, it was not so difficult. It wasn't difficult being in a band where there are mostly men. There are no women at all, and then being a front woman of the band, it it's just like being with my family. So in that way, I'm really happy that I am a Khasi. I'm proud to be a Khasi, and I was not restricted to play the guitar. I was not restricted. Even if I had learned how to play the drums, I don't think my mother would have any problems with that. So yeah, uh, since being a front woman means I have to travel a lot, and being more independent, as female singers from the past would have never done that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the support that I get from my family is incredible. It's allowed me to be the woman that I am today. With their love and their trust that I have this passion for music, they have allowed me to travel with the band, to travel with uh, all the men, because at sometimes I do get this from people, from maybe far off relatives. They would be asking my mother, "How do you allow your daughter to travel so much only with the male member?" My mother's reply will be like, "I have no problem with my daughter traveling because I trust her. I have raised her well. So, well, that's the advantage of being in a matrilineal society.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Tipriti. My next question, I would like to throw it at Sunita. Sunita has had a very illustrious career, of course, and she is one of the very few female classical musicians who has made such a brilliant mark. And well, your journey started from your support system. First was your mom, who was your teacher first, and then of course you went on to learn from other people too. But how has your journey been, you know, learning from your mother and then you yourself becoming a mother at some point and then having that opportunity to probably you know, guide your children, your child in the same direction? What's the journey been like?
Thank you, Mercy, for this wonderful question, and thank you, Zubaan, and the entire team for hosting this wonderful panel with such wonderful musicians around us. Yes, to answer your question, when it comes to you know, Northeast, as Tipriti also talked about, Northeast, you know, we are not used to so much of discrimination with, you know, between women and men. I would say influences have come in, you know, over the years. Like you say, you take influences from the mainstream also learns from regions like us. But well, even in Assam, because I'm an Assamese, even there, the concept of dowry is not there, you know, which is very, very unusual for most of, compared to other states. So there's a difference in raising a girl child or a boy child. And however, yet my mother ensured that she forced me to learn the violin and did not force my brother to carry on his unique talent of singing. So therein you see, yeah, and my mother was a very progressive Minoti count. Everyone in Assam knows her, very progressive. You know, she'll be completing 60 years of marriage next in February. So 60 years, 70 years back, she was learning, and even as a married woman with 2 children, she was sent to a guru to Kolkata to learn from our guru Pandit V.G. Jog. So extremely progressive, coming from that period of time and married to a very traditional Assamese family. Yet when it came to her daughter, she said, you have to be at home and learn music. And our son can play sports and he may not need to pursue music. So that was the first disconnect I had with my mom. I said, how can you force me to learn the violin, a very overwhelming instrument to start with? Because it doesn't make any sounds in the beginning. The violin screeches and scratches, and there is cacophony in the house when you have a violin student. So it was absolutely not interesting, exciting, engaging, encouraging, and motivating for me at all. So I always wanted to run away from it. But as I entered my 20s, as I did my studies in music, I had to do my master's in music. My mother forced me to do that, and I thank her for it now, because my entire identity today as a musician has been to use music in different mediums, in HR, in social change, and all of that. So that was the conflict with my mother to learn. But eventually, when I grew up and started performing with her together on stage, I think that dynamics was, I would say, very beautiful, very emotional. One, she was my guru. 2, she's my mother, which means I can take advantages and I can, you know, push myself some boundaries. And 3rd, she was a senior artist herself on stage. So that has been a very, very inspiring, emotional, you know, process for me. So when my son grew up, I never wanted to force him to learn the piano or the violin. Of course, violin, difficult to teach, because what my mother went through to teach me, I don't think I have that kind of giving and that kind of devotion in me to give that to my son, you know, because it's very difficult to teach an instrument and teach it properly. But well, my son has taken up the piano. He's a Western classical pianist, and by God's grace, we've performed together in 3 generations. Well, for my son, it is that if you are a musician, you need to have 1 million followers on YouTube, 1 million followers on Instagram, or else, I mean, how can you say you're a musician? But then he asked me, but mom, you're invited to play here and there across the world, but you don't have Instagram, you hardly have YouTube, so how does it work? So that's a big disconnect that I have with him. Well, that's been these different kinds of conflicts at times, learnings at times that happens when you're part of a musical family.
Absolutely true. And I completely identify because we sisters, we also learned our first songs from our mother, and she was a taskmaster. She still is a taskmaster. She is such a perfectionist that we still feel so nervous to present a new song in front of her. But it's so wonderful to hear how your mom started your journey for you in a way. And even though at some point we do resent, the kind of interference our parents tend to do, but it's always for our better, I guess.
Always,
and
always, always,
and then we see a very strong woman giving birth to another strong woman. And then, of course, that's how the way it should go. Well, I have.
Just a second. I'm so sorry to cut in, Mercy. I actually need to apologize. I somehow skipped Sunita's introduction. I'm so sorry for it. I
No
don't know
worries,
how that
no
happened,
worries.
but I'd like to fix that. So Sunita Bhuyan is a violinist and an eminent HR professional from Assam. She's the first violinist to play Assamese folk on the violin and fuse it with Scottish, Irish, and world folk music. So sorry, I'm so sorry for skipping
No
it.
worries at all. No worries. I didn't even
Please take over.
think about that.
Oh, my bad. And how did I not notice that?
Don't worry. Don't worry.
So while we're talking about, mothers and the kind of roles they're playing, even as musicians, whereas as artists, I would like to throw a question at MoArenla. Well, of course, Moa, you're on mute. So MoArenla, you are also a young mother yourself, and your journey has been so very interesting, especially considering your mixed heritage. You are half Naga with a Manipuri father. You have married a Punjabi man, an artist himself, and you perform Rajasthani folk. Uh, it's such a fascinating mix, and you being a woman who has recently become a mother. Okay, not very recently, but and in our conversations, you had mentioned that. There was a point when you had to choose between music and continue with music, or focus on being a mother. That is the kind of transition one of my sisters herself has gone through, and I would like to hear about how your support system worked for you, because delving into that mixed culture, you come from a Naga, a Manipuri society, which is kind of very different, even though we are all patriarchal in that sense, but it's a very different cultural mix. So what was the process like for you?
Okay. Hi. Hello, everyone. First of all, I just want to thank Zubaan for organizing this webinar and making me a part of it. It's a big honor for me. And thank you, Anungla Zoe, for putting us all together here. And coming back to the question, okay, where do I start from? So yes, my father is from Manipur, and my mother was a Naga, and so I grew up in a joint family, in a big family on my mother's side, and my father is a practicing Hindu, and my mother was a Christian, and my grandfather, my mother's father, with whom I was very close to, he never followed any religion, but he used to always tell me about he used to talk to me a lot about nature, how nature plays such a big role in a human's life, and like he would always tell me that what matters most in life is to be good to other people, be kind, and be forgiving. So these are the three things that I remember, the conversations that I used to have with my grandfather, and I try to follow that every single day. And so growing up, I was exposed to various kinds of music. From my grandmother's side, I was exposed to church music because she used to go regularly to churches, and I used to go with her, and always used to get so fascinated with the listening to the church choirs. And at home, since I grew up in a joint family, so with lots of aunts and uncles, so lots of Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Michael Jackson, and all kinds of rock and pop music used to happen at home. And my grandfather introduced me to a lot of Bollywood music from the 70s. And he used to get me cassettes, which we had a small tape recorder, and he would make me listen, then I would try and memorize the lines, and then later sing it. Like everyone would gather around and I would be like singing them songs from Mughal Azam, from Anarkali and all that. So growing up with all this exposure to music, all kinds of music, even though I never took up music as a profession, and I never thought that one day I would like really like that it'll be the biggest thing that I'll be doing in my life, but it was always part of my life. And so I ended up in Jaipur and got to be a part of Rajasthan Roots. Rajasthan Roots is a folk fusion band involved with like lots of different musicians from all over Rajasthan. Lots of beautiful instruments and amazing artists from like everywhere. And I'm the only female in the band,
Right.
but I've never felt like left out, or I've never felt like that I have no say in anything within the band, because that way it's really amazing how everyone in the band gets to communicate with each other and give our opinions about like what to do and all that. So I've never really felt left out as a woman, as the only woman in the band. And it's been an amazing experience. We traveled all over the world, performed in like great venues all over. And I was singing songs in Marwari and in Punjabi, lots of Sufi songs, beautiful. Like I learned so much being a part of this band. And it's actually, the band is like the mothership. So many musicians have been part of this band and started their own individual bands, you know. So I consider myself very fortunate to be a part of this band. And then I got married, and then I had a kid 6 years ago. And there was a period where I took like a very long break from performing and traveling, and I was like completely immersed in being a mother, in raising my child. And I enjoyed every moment of it. I still do. And my son is 6 years old, and we are unschooling him. And it's going to be it's being a parent is like a never-ending journey. And so within that period of time, I did miss being on stage, you know. And there was a slight moment where I felt like, is this it for me? Like, am I never going to travel or perform or make music again? And it was there was a time like that. But having such a supportive husband, and my in-laws, they're also amazing. They're so supportive in everything that I do. And so my husband Aditya Bhasin, he's also a musician himself. And thanks to him, actually more than me, he's the one who has always stood by me and always pushed me, you know. When I would, sometimes I would be like, I can't do it anymore, I'm just giving up, you know. I'll just stay at home, cook and just do whatever. So then he would be like, no, like you have so much to do and you have to do it, and I'm here for you all the time. So that is the big advantage that I have, having him in my life to support me and encourage me and be a part of it. And now we create music together, and especially during this lockdown, we have been isolated for the past 7 months. So all we have been doing is just creating art, making music, doing a bit of filming, and spending time with our child and our dogs. And so it's life is actually really good right now, and I'm very happy and I'm very blessed, and I hope it stays that way.
Wow. I know. That's good.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And it's actually very gratifying to hear the kind of a perspective, because, you know, a lot of times you're hearing so much negativity about women having to make a choice once you become a mother. Then, you know, there is this guilting factor. Even if nobody particular is making you feel guilt, you know, you have that sense of guilt yourself. But yeah, if you have a great support system like that, I think that's wonderful. And I feel that this is something unique to the system that we have in the North is, and of course, I'm seeing a lot of more female musicians and artists who are being in a very good support system, receiving love and support from everyone in the family or in the friend group. So it's really wonderful to hear that. Yeah, it's been really positive for you, and we can't wait to hear more music from you too. Um, I'm just going to throw one more question at Sunita, because you're right here on my screen. And well, one of the conversations earlier, you had mentioned that there were points in time when you yourself felt guilt as a mother, you know, continuing to perform when your child was younger. How did you handle that? And how did you
well, Mercy. Actually, um, that guilt that I had was when I was much younger, and that's what I really want to share with mainly the audiences. And the challenge that I had was not just to pursue music, but I had a full-time job as an HR professional then, because so I had a full-time job, and I was thinking of what should I do? How do I make that break? How do I cut off from a a compensation package every month, the big car, the big house that the corporate world entices you with, and you've studied, so you want to make the best of it. But art is very erratic. You don't know what your next level of income is going to come from the next month, right? So how do you break away? That was a big challenge, because of which I did a lot. I tried to do a lot together. Weekends I was performing, traveling, and weekdays I was working. And as a result, I was all the time guilty that my little boy, wasn't getting my time. And as he grew older, the academic system, the schools didn't help either. They were very, very patronizing with me. And one of the biggest schools in Bombay where he was educated, I don't want to say the name, was always very, very patronizing towards me. I started getting withdrawals to go to the parent-teacher meetings. Because the first thing that they tell me is that your son, Ronajit, is very naughty, he disturbs the class, and I think Mrs. Bhuyan, you should spend more time with him. And they completely assume that, this mother is not interested in bringing up the child. Partly she was true, because, of course, I couldn't give that much time. I couldn't be there for every meeting, for every school event. But I also realized that if you have a family, like Mo just said, if you have people around you, if you have a partner to support, if you have made good relationships within your family, because as sometimes when we're young and bold and, when the career paths are blooming, sometimes we get a little complacent and we kind of push aside a lot of people around us whom we think are not adding value to us. But mind you, every friend, every associate, every family member that's around you can be a huge, precious gem for us if we can hold their hands, and because support is mutual. And I really thank God that my mother, in spite of being a musician, always told me that if you have chosen to marry, you have to give equal amount of time and love to people around you. If you, or else you don't, or else you pursue music on your own. If you have decided to give your time to your family, create a family, you've got to give time to that. So that was a huge struggle in my mind. I'm talking about a 30-year-old. I'm talking about 20 years, 15, 20 years back. And the guilt used to make me feel unhealthy, feel sick. I developed migraines, because you're all the time thinking, if I'm at work, I'm thinking about my son. When I'm traveling, I'm trying to tag him along with the ayah, and trying to get my husband off his work and getting him along, because how do I manage him alone? So I was trying to do all of that and always guilty. And the guilt played a big toll on my health. By the time I became 40 years old, I realized that I don't need to be best in everything. I don't need to get an A+ in motherhood. I'm a zero in the kitchen. I don't know to cook at all. Every time I cook, it's a disaster, and I used to cry my heart out. But now I don't, and I can't be good in everything. But I will try. But I'll try to be a friend to my son. I'll try to take him along with me wherever I can, and I'll try to give my best to my music and give love to people around me and my time. And I think those people have helped me throughout in the last 20 years. So my mother's words that, if you choose to do something, you've got to dare to keep the dynamics of that relationship, whether it's your career, your music, and feeling guilty doesn't take us anywhere. I've gone through it. So that's my big experience, that never feel guilty. Don't worry about getting A's in everything. In one also, if you're close to A, I think life is good enough.
Absolutely agree with that, definitely. Thank you so much, Sunita, for sharing that. I'm going to go on to Mangka. Well, Mangka, she's also been such an inspiration to me, and well, to bring to highlight to the fact that she herself is one of the very few artists in her space making such a mark. She's so young, and still she has taken on the responsibility of teaching her art to younger people, and she's been teaching young kids as young as three years old. That's marvelous. And she herself has learned from her father, and now she's doing the teaching. How has that transition taken place for you, Manka?
Okay. Okay, so first of all, hello everyone, and nice to meet you, all of you, because I'm so lucky to meet all of you, even though it is virtual. I wish we all meet up in person very soon. And thank you, Zubaan, and thank you, Sister Anungla, for bringing us all together. And I feel like we are all sisters, and yeah. Okay, so I will start. Did you hear me properly? I mean, because my internet is very poor today.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, okay, okay. So, uh, it all started with a background of music in my family, and no one influenced me from a very young age. And my father is also an artist, and he runs an organization. It's totally it's a center for art and traditional music, and she, under him he have loads of artists. And I grew up listening to so many different kinds of music and seeing the dances where so many artists are just, they are like living with me, and I always wanted to be part of them. But I was very young. I was only 2 or 3 years old. And the moment my father realized was when I first sneak out from my home and uh, participate on dance competition on some other locality. And they were shocked. They were shocked because I was missing at the house. But I came back home with a prize, and I said, this is a prize, so let me learn something. I want to learn dance. I want to learn music. I still remember the first dance I danced in front of them. It was like, I hope you all know, there was a TV channel called Dawn 2000 or something, and I was dancing a Bollywood song like that, Nimbura Nimbura something, that song. And from that onwards, my father was always observing me. But and also I grew up in a society where there are so many things that women are not allowed to do. Women shouldn't do this, women shouldn't touch these and all. And luckily, my father is a very open person, and uh, we do follow a religion which is called Sanamahi. But we are very open to all religion. And uh, he taught me a lot indirectly. I cannot say he's my best teacher, but he gives me a very good path to my guru, who is she is also the first pioneer of the art form which I am learning right now. And she's still alive now. Only two of them are alive now. The art form what I'm learning is only practiced by women after the Second World War. And so many people are like uh, they are avoiding that particular art form. It is very rare, and we have so many art forms, but most of them are related to religious ceremony, uh, I also know how to sing those kind of art form, but I prefer the folk and traditional music one. And at the time, there was no children at my age who came to learn for this kind of art form. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, the instrument that I play, which is called penna, it's a very traditional instrument, and um, since the very old time, women are not allowed to play. Women are not allowed to touch that instrument, and I always wanted to touch and play because that instrument was lying inside my home, and I was like, why can't women touch this instrument? Because there are two different components in pena. One, we believe it is a mother, and one is a uh, father. It is it is made up from mother and father, but why woman cannot play this instrument? I keep asking that to my father, and luckily, uh, Padma Shri awardee, he is my father's guru. He's still alive. He allowed that women can also play pela, but not on ritual festival. And then there's a wave from on late 20s. Women started playing pena, and there are so many moments that I was betrayed, and um, you know uh, being an artist, and uh, the society who were not really supportive at the time. They were making fun of our family, and when I started performing, I even had a very sad moment when the organizers shout like, finish those script performances, come down, they don't want to hear that anymore. And that that's really hurts, and but it doesn't stop me from learning all those kind of thing. It gives me more challenge and all. And people treat it as a very outdated thing, but my father and I with Lifey, we started thinking of something like, why are people avoiding this kind of art form and all. And um, we started contemporizing it so that uh, the young generations, the youth attracts the performance. And overall, starting from the way we present, the way we sing, the costume we wear, everything, we contemporize it, and that's how we started attracting the young youths. But at the beginning, um everything was like, I still remember all of those moments, but I feel lucky that I get my father and I met my guru. So I'm still going on. I hope everything will be um, in history one day. But
Right,
I'm
right.
happy with what I am right now, because I think I am achieving my dream a lot, starting from the children's and all. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so uplifting to hear your story and to hear that in spite of all the in the persecution and the opposition that you faced, you have been really strong and you have owned your space and you've come to your own, and you are continuing the traditions that's going to, I am sure, impact a lot of more young women to take up music, especially the rare forms that need preservation. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Manka.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so very delighted, even more, to be amongst all these wonderful women who have all owned their own spaces in very non-traditional ways, I would say. And well, the latest addition to this wonderful space is the very young but very wise old soul, lyricist and singer, of course, Anoushka Maskey. And so very delighted to have you here this evening. And Anushka, it's been really wonderful to read about you. I was reading about how you have been declared a breaking out artist during this really difficult and uncertain times. And especially being a female artist in this space, we would love to know more about how this all came about. If you have had any female influences along your journey, because I read somewhere that you picked up guitar from your brother, but what has been the force behind your journey?
Hi, everybody. Before I start, I just like to say how honored I am to be out here on this panel for somebody who's just starting out. To literally be on here with so many of you incredible women is it's crazy to me. But yeah, so yes, I did. My huge, musical influence comes from my brother. He's 7 years older than me, and growing up, he would listen to all kinds of music under the sun. And what I, seemed to connect with most was American folk music. And so we would have these jam sessions. I remember in the hall where he would play the guitar, I would sing. I think I would definitely say that he was one of the first people that recognized that, I had the skill that I could develop. But in terms of who has been, I think, my biggest support system in terms of who has been the one that's always pushed me to do anything and everything it is that I've actually wanted to do, whether or not that may be the conventional way, is my mother, 110%. Um, her side of the family is um, definitely more orthodox than she is. And every time we meet during the share and stuff like that, also people are always asking me, why don't you take a more conventional you know means of why don't you accept a more conventional career, and what is this that you're chasing, you're just performing and all that. They don't get it. But I have seen that my mother has evolved in time. Like, I have actually like observed her, and the way she's changed through time, the way she's learned to change, the way she thinks, the way that she's gotten with the
Hello?
times, which is hello.
Asha.
Yeah, you're audible. Anoushka, yes.
Yeah, I think I hear
Yeah.
someone. Yeah,
वो
but
थार
anyway,
अभी आए नहीं हैं वापस कब
I'm hearing someone's voice like
I
speak
know
over
there's
mine.
an interference somewhere. But please continue.
Should I continue? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes, please.
yes, I was saying, I've seen her very different from her siblings evolve through time and grow with me, become more. She used to be like super strict and stuff like that. I wouldn't be allowed to go out of the house in the evening and all of that stuff, starting from right there. But I have literally seen her evolve, and that has just been one of my biggest, sources of inspiration. And she supported me when I wanted to study to be a journalist. She supported me when I decided to start working at an advertising and marketing firm. She supported me when I decided that I wanted to completely not follow any of that and do just music instead. So yeah, like one thing she's always put out there is that she wants me to have like that degree and all of that stuff. And I have to say that my undergraduate degree, for the most part, I did want to study, but not as much as I wanted to make music. But she's a huge part of the reason why I even got my undergrad degree. But I think that for all the sacrifices she's made
Right.
and for everything she's done, it's yeah, like I'm just really happy that she's in my life, and she's definitely my biggest source of inspiration. She's the reason why I decided to do music full time.
That's wonderful. So where does the music come from?
So I have my mom, and she's very musical that way. And
Hmm.
brother, our first cousins, they're very musical. So his influence comes from there, and mine comes from him. So yeah, primarily I would say my brother.
That's so cool. Thank you so much, Anoushka.
Yes, thank you.
I'm coming back to Tipriti. I can't see you, but okay. Hi, Tipriti. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, yeah. Tipriti, I have a question for you because you have a lot of course, extensive experience touring, and it's always like, the boys' club that you have broken into, and you have come out as this really fierce voice for a lot of women to gain courage to actually follow in your footsteps. Have you ever felt at any point of time that you're being treated differently, either, it could be good or bad, but have you ever felt that you've been treated differently because you're a woman?
So far, so good. I've never come across uh, an event management or a festival that has treated me different from the male musicians. You know, thank God in a way. But yeah, I guess um, at times it is difficult being a woman and pursuing this line of career. You just like you a lot of what do you say? You go through uh, uh, certain uh, things that uh, a male uh, a male even management team would not understand what a female requires. That's the only that's the only thing that I face sometimes as a woman, because most even management teams or managers are always male focused. It's difficult for me to tell them when I'm going through uh, my female problem. You know what I mean? All right. So, so, so the thing with my experience in my journey of music, I feel that there should be a safe environment for female performers. Uh, like regarding if it's an open festival where people are drunk, okay, there should be a safe place where women can dress up, a safe green room, you know. These are the only obstacles that I face when I go to a remote area for a festival, and when they have those bamboo kind of shelters for the artists, right? And yeah, and then you have traveled all the way for the festival, and you want to present yourself as a woman. I always like to look good when I go up on stage, and when you have these very uh, transparent curtains, that's the only part where it makes me feel unsafe, you know. But I'm glad that my boys are always there to look after that. And regarding a crowd, a wild crowd, a crowd that's drunk, I've always been strong and assertive with the wild crowd. I know when and how to hush them down, you know. And that's, I guess that is it comes from my upbringing. My like I said, being in a matrilineal society, it's not only about what you you inherit. It's more about how a woman plays herself in a family. She is strong. It's not just a father who's there to tell you, no, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. My mom also have the authority to tell me things. And with all due respect, the responsibility that Khasi women take, you know, uh, in raising their children, and that has all come from my background, my roots. So I really appreciate the upbringing that I am able, even in a band where we play music is different. It's rocking. It makes a person dance. It makes you drink uh, rice beer, whiskey, or whatever, and then you get so happy to see a female playing guitar and rocking on the stage and doing her thing. Male, they like they get excited when they see that, when they see a woman who's able to perform as much as a male. I guess it kind of tickles them. So they would come and approach me in the manner that they think that, oh yeah, because she was rocking so much on stage, I think it'll be easy to go and speak to her, right? So there's one more thing that I feel as a female performer, the way we are portrayed, how we present ourselves is very important. That's why I always tend to look at a very modest and somewhat conservative look, because I do not want to portray the same energy that I have on stage, that I am easily available to talk to a drunk man. You know?
Right.
So after a show, uh, if somebody wants to come and talk to me, if you come and with respect to me being a lady, you want to talk to me about uh, uh, something interesting, I am there for you. But
Right.
there is no putting your hands on my shoulders and all that, because I would definitely kick your backside. and and being with an all male band, in a way I feel protective, very very protective. They always protect me. When I know that there's someone I can't handle, I would go to Keith and tell him, Keith, that guy is acting funny with me, and they would go and put this guy in his place. Once, I'll tell you, there was an incident at B flat where a guy came and you know that I always had these butterflies on my mic stand.
Yes.
And this drunk man came while I was singing. He was there making faces, doing such things at me, but I do not want to disturb the music, because it's already in the middle of a song.
Correct.
I'm very good at making faces, so I just look at him like that, and I was like still singing, and I just pointed him like that, and the crowd took this guy, grabbed him while the song was still going on. They grabbed him and they just chuck him out. And so that's the reason I feel that it is very important how we portray or how we present ourselves on stage.
Right. That's so true. I mean, it's wonderful that we've all mostly have had positive experiences as women musicians in performing at different platforms, different kind of crowds. But isn't it really sad in a way that we have to think twice about what we wear, how we present ourselves? Because when people are talking about a male musician, he might come out naked, shirtless on the stage, and nobody's gonna care a hoot about what he's wearing. Nobody talks about what color he was wearing. There's so much more reasons women attract the wrong kind of criticism, or even a music review by a woman would start with something more that is not at all about the music, about her music at all. They'll be more concerned about what she's wearing, how she presents herself, or even the kind of instruments that she plays. The question will be like, why did you choose to pick up a guitar instead of a piano? Why a violin instead of drum? So I think that, as strong women here who have, well, in our own ways, battled our own battles and come out like this, do you feel that there is something that all of us can do differently so that this kind of questions don't come to the younger generations? Would anyone want to say something on that?
I think there's only to some point that we can fight nature. Nature has made men and women differently, right? So beyond the point, we cannot fight. And Mercy, being part of an all-women band, and the way you all have risen beyond the female form and instruments with your work, you have kind of taken over the world and impressed the world so well, but it's always will be a woman and a man. The difference will be there. But if we can, if our work is not gender specific, and if, like Tipriti said, if we can present ourselves, it's also the image that we want to build. Coming to forums like this, being part of change movements to enhance the musical world, enhance the environment, to be equally part of curation, to understand how sound and stage and lights work. But this is what people think: sound and stage and lights are a man's world. As a woman, we should look pretty. I should wear my mekhla and my violin should be at the right angle, and I should sing and play and dance. No, I'm equally I want to know what the sound guy, how many guys he has on the console. Is he going to take instructions from me when I'm talking, even from live from the stage? So those are the
Right.
kinds of building that we have to do very gradually, very naturally, but very assertively. Not with a feminist approach, never with activism, not
Right.
as a women's liver, but definitely as an equal partner in the process of making music. That's a tough one, but we can definitely try and move towards that.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Because we are not looking at dominating the field,
Yes.
like men versus women, but, to have more representation and more inclusion of women in the field that we all enjoy and we all specialize to in the extent that, it's not about just a woman being a great singer, a great backup singer, maybe a great guitarist, but why can't we have more sound engineers? Why can't we have more lighting people? Why not? Absolutely. And I think that is why we are here this afternoon, to be talking about these experiences that has come to us all. And yes, encourage more women to be part of this field too, because unless we see more representation, more women actually doing things out there, then of course people will not get the idea that, okay, this is also possible for a woman. And I'm so glad to hear your thoughts on this too. We've been taking questions, and I think we have a couple of questions. If there's anyone who wants to put any more questions, the chat box is open, so please put in your questions. I have one question for Mangka here. So the question goes, Mangka, the space that all of you have made is commendable. Do you think there is enough visibility of women musicians around you? And is there a larger systematic issue that women can only make a career if you have the support of your husband or your father, etc.?
Okay. Oh, these are very tricky questions, but yeah. I will just give only few points, like
Right.
on my experience, because uh, present right now and what I see uh, till now. Um, when I first started my music career, I can say that almost 90% of uh, parents, they are not allowed to opt at music or dance, especially for their daughters. But for their son, they let them do everything, because all of them are going after education line, like doctors, engineers, and everything. And they always think that if you become an artist, you will be uneducated, and you won't have a better future. That's what most of the 90% of the parents are going after. But I can see so many changes by now, starting from um, 2014. Actually, 2014 was my biggest turning point in my career. So from that point onwards, people are started coming to me and started asking about um, how their daughters can uh, learn this and that and everything. And even in here in Manipur, there is no particular school or institutions for this kind of art form. We have one, two dance college. There we learn dance and some music, but those music that I'm learning right now, we don't have any source to learn. So till now, there are so many parents who are against this thing, but um, I have seen lots of changes, not only from my side, but I think people are started realizing that we all start with the root, and we all have to end with the root. So people are starting realizing it, I think, and so does all my students. Most of them are women. I'm sorry, girls, not women. Okay, and the
Women
first
too.
the first two student of mine, they are both girls, and it was surprisingly one little boy came to me, and I would love to hear with you if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
But Did you see?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, these two girls, they are my first student who came to me, and they both are very talented, and they started performing with me. And this little boy who is wearing white, he was only 4 years old at this
Oh,
time.
mhm.
And then we started performing in just few months, and from this time onwards, I think society and even the parents, even the guardians, they have started, I don't know, changing their mind towards or something. And yeah, and so many children started coming, they started learning dance and music. And even now there are some schools opening for for extracurricular activities, folk music, folk dance and everything. So I think I have seen so much change by now. Not only, of course, parents' supports are very much needed, and most importantly, society is very important, because um, it's where we brought up. And I mean, uh, if there is not a single support from society, even if my parents are allowed to do this, then I think I will never we will never go up. So
No, I know. We
we all,
are, yeah,
yeah,
we're a state that our society and our audience allows
of
us to
course,
be.
yes. My teacher used to tell me that artists are like a fish, and
Mhm.
society is a water. But now I think that kind of proverb is not working anymore, because there are so many dirty water, so we have to choose what kind of water we have to live in. So I
Right.
think we have
And
to be a
swim to clear
voice.
Washington.
Yeah, so it's not
Yes.
only about the parents, it's about the society, the environment, and everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mangka. I have a question for Anushka. So the question goes, hard as it is for women to find space for themselves in musical traditions, is it even harder to create space for other musicians to hold the door open? Well, literally to make way for other women artists to come on the scene. What do you feel about that?
So the question is whether it's hard to make way for other artists to come into the scene. Is that it?
Right.
Other
Or
female
even
artists?
how do you feel it has been for you to come into that space because somebody else had created that space for you, or you can do that in turn at some point?
I think I don't know. Like, to be honest, it's been pretty. Considering the fact that I've really managed to grow my online presence over the past few months.
Right.
Maybe it's slightly different in the live scene,
Right.
but in terms of the online scene, I think it's been pretty. I've had a pretty fair experience of being of doing shows and gigging online and all of that stuff. But although I can say that a lot of the times I get a lot of the attention that's not based on my music particularly. um uh, and that comes from like DMs and people telling me, oh, you should do this, you should do that, and like, we don't get why you're doing this. Like, for example, I remember once I posted like this ridiculous video of me dancing ridiculously, and then I got like 2 or 3 DMs telling me like, oh, like, what is this, like, with an eye roll emoji. And I'm like,
Mhm.
like, that's when I understood that a lot of people are expecting to see me in like that graceful image, and that I need to maintain, that way of being, of having that online presence. And even when I would fool around and like, I have a potty mouth sometimes, and I did that during one of the lives, and there are people going, like, watch yourself, or like, yeah. So that way it's been, I think that's been like my minimum experience. But in terms of
Mhm.
making more space for female artists and all of that, it's been pretty welcoming to me, the online space. Yeah.
That's wonderful because we are, treading this whole new experience of getting to know our audiences digitally as opposed to having a live audience, and it's a brand new experience for all of us, and we're all learning as we go. Okay, due to the paucity of time, we're closing the chat box, so we won't be taking any more questions. but there was this very interesting question, and I would round up with that because, well, along the conversation, I think we can basically conclude that, you know, we have all reached where we are due to a very good support system, and I would say uh, certain cultural pluses that we have as women belonging to the North is because well, there is the popular perception that, you know, women in the Northeast enjoy a much safer environment. We also have a certain freedom in terms of the choices that we get to make in terms of a career, and we also face a lot less judgment and have a better support system, which can be either from our fathers and brothers, as most of us have also explained, but also learning the ways of performances, for example, for especially for those of us who are rooted in folklore, we have learned from our mothers, and I am just assuming that we all have much to thank our parents, our mothers, our fathers, for the wonderful journey that we have started on. And well, in spite of all the space remain for us to conquer and for things to get better for other women who will come behind us or after us. I am so grateful that all of you shared such wonderful insights into your journey as women, and well, we still all have a long way to go to make the ratio, the status quo, more favorable to other women. And I hope all of us will continue inspiring more women to take up risks and then to take up a career in music and not have to think too much about, you know, how you have to shape yourself to fit the images that people expect you to be, but be brave, you know, be out there to speak your hearts, to create, because I think creating music is equally as difficult and as poignant and personal as birthing a child. And I wish all power to all of us women out here, and I hope we can all inspire so many more little girls and the young women out there, even the way how Mangka is inspiring not just girls but men to reorient themselves into
Hi, Mercy.
that we can also
Did her
be
screen get frozen? Sorry.
Yeah, she's back again.
Yeah. Yeah,
Am I
Mercy.
there? Am I audible?
Yeah, your screen froze for a while.
Thanks to thanks to the poor network and the cloud cover in the north is unfortunate. But anyway, I'm so grateful to Zubaan for opening up this opportunity to have this very important conversation, and this kind of conversations are definitely needed, and there needs to be a lot more of dialogue between artists ourselves, you know, people who want to become artists themselves. And I am really grateful and delighted to be a part of this. And thank you so much, my colleagues, the wonderful women who were part of this panel. And thank you to Zubaan. And thank you to everyone who joined in for the wonderful questions. And yeah, look forward to more wonderful music and meaningful music from all of us, which will lead the way and yeah, break more barriers, smash more myths, because we are all women in music and we are owning our space. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much, Mercy.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers today, Tipriti, Mangka, Sunita, MoArenla, and Anoushka. And thank you so much, Mercy, for conducting this very interesting session. And I would like to extend a word of thanks to all the participants as well for staying with us throughout the conversation. We acknowledge the contribution of the feminists and the women before us who have made it possible for us to even have these conversations today, who have fought for our right to speak. We have heard a lot of interesting voices today, and we're so happy that we could provide this platform for this conversation. Like our work, we believe that feminism and feminist work has always been about bringing forth the unheard voices of women, queer people, those from the marginalized communities. As women who have become public figures in our work, the responsibility of providing that platform and acknowledging that struggle becomes even more important. Thank you so much for that. And the recording of this webinar will be put on our YouTube channel, and you can view this recording along with our previous webinars, which were conducted for our project Through Her Lens, Reframing the Domestic and A Crisis of Care, Feminist Perspectives on the COVID Pandemic and Lockdown in India. You can go to our YouTube page, the link of which will be provided in the chat box below. And please follow us on our social media. It goes by Zubaan Books on Facebook and Twitter. We have 2 Instagram pages, Zubaan Projects and Books. So make sure you follow both. Thank you so much all. Have a nice day and goodbye.